Every offseason, there are moves and trades made by each NFL franchise to try and propel them to the end goal, which of course is winning a Super Bowl. Some trades are bigger than others and shock the NFL world when these moves are made. And in today's video, we are going to discuss 4 big NFL trades that happened a few offseasons ago and grade each side based on how they've worked out for each franchise so far. We are also going to look at the draft picks that have now been made with these picks, so we have a full picture with how these trades panned out. Some may surprise you as they are pretty one-sided, while others are pretty even and have worked out for both franchises. As you can imagine, there is a lot to dive into with each team and each situation in today's video. This video will not cover every single big trade over the past few years, and there may be another video soon discussing other big trades over the past few years. Now, with that preface out of the way, let's begin. We are starting today's video with one of the most notable trades that's taken place over the past few years, which of course was the Stefon Diggs trade that sent Diggs to Buffalo and to ultimately team up with then up-and-coming quarterback Josh Allen. Diggs has been everything the Bills hoped for when they made this trade, as he has started his Bills career off with 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and with 3 games left in the 2023 season at the time of this video release, I would be pretty surprised if it's not 4 straight 100 reception, 1,200-yard seasons. When Buffalo made this trade, they wanted a number 1 receiver and a guy who would both help make the game easier for their budding franchise quarterback in Josh Allen and help him along in his development too. They not only traded the 22nd overall pick in the 2020 draft, which would of course become Justin Jefferson, but they also traded a 5th and 6th rounder in 2020 and a 4th rounder in 2021. Buffalo also received a 2020 7th round pick, which eventually turned into corner Dane Jackson. Dane obviously wasn't the centerpiece of this trade, but for Buffalo to receive over 45 games played and 28 starts from a 7th round corner is a huge hit on a 7th round pick in itself. That is not mentioning anything Diggs has done since becoming Buffalo's number 1 receiver either. Diggs is already 4th all-time in receptions, 5th in receiving yards, though that will soon climb to 4th, and 4th in receiving touchdowns for the Bills. In his first season with the team, they made it to the AFC Championship game where they eventually lost to the Chiefs, and in each of the next 2 years, largely due to Stefon's contributions, they won a playoff game but exited in the divisional round. For what Buffalo was looking for in this trade, they received everything and more. Less than 4 years later, this is an A+ grade. Now, for the Vikings side, where they received perennial Pro Bowler Justin Jefferson from LSU. The Vikings' all-time receiving leaders has a lot more depth than you would think, and believe it or not, JJ is only 10th in receptions in team history, 8th in receiving yards, and tied for 10th in receiving touchdowns. Obviously, with time, we do expect JJ to climb into the top 2 or 3 of all of these categories, and this trade has been dubbed as one of the biggest win-win trades in recent NFL memory. But what I think should have more light shed on this trade is, while yes, the Vikings received one of the best receivers in today's game in Jefferson, they also received a very good player with the 2021 4th rounder in safety Cam Bynum. The Vikings defense has received a lot more love in 2023 due to Brian Flores and his defensive scheme, and Cam Bynum plays a big part in that. He, of course, had 2 interceptions in the big Monday night win over San Francisco and has been one of the better safeties in 2023. Jefferson unfortunately missed a lot of the 2023 season due to a hamstring injury, but in the first 3 years of his career, all JJ did was go for over 1,400 yards in every year, as well as be named an All-Pro and Pro Bowler in each of those years. People will get into this debate and say the Vikings won this trade because they got a better receiver and for cheaper, and also point to the fact that Justin is 24 years old while Stefon is now 30, and give the Vikings the edge. While that may be true and have validity, both sides got what they wanted and more from this trade, and the Vikings also receive an A+ grade. Next up is the Jared Goff and 2 first trade for Matt Stafford between the Lions and Rams. This trade was made in January of 2021, and it was Jared Goff, 2 firsts and a 3rd in exchange for Stafford. For the Rams side, this is pretty easy. This team had come close to winning a Super Bowl not just once, but a couple of times during the Jared Goff and Sean McVay era, as they had won double-digit games in 3 of the 4 years these two worked together. The closest they, of course, got was losing Super Bowl 53 to the Bill Belichick Patriots, in which they would go on to put up just 3 points. Something needed to change as Goff wasn't enough and the Rams' window wasn't going to be open forever. So they effectively put their money where their mouth was and pushed all their chips to the center of the table to go get Matt Stafford. And because they won the Super Bowl the very first year after this trade was made, it's pretty clear what the Rams' grade for this trade is, and it's an A+. It doesn't matter that they went 5-12 in a very injury-plagued 2022 season, or however their 2023 season will finish. They could make the playoffs this year, and in fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Rams traveled to Detroit for the wild card round of the playoffs. But when you push all your chips to the center of the table and you win, that's all that matters. We will break down the future of the Los Angeles Rams this offseason in upcoming videos, and believe it or not, I actually like their situation, due in large part to their 2023 draft class, but for as much as 2022 stunk for this team, it's irrelevant because banners fly forever and the haters can effectively kiss the ring. Now, for the Lions side, this was the first move GM Brad Holmes would make in his Lions career. This could have proved to be one of the best moves of his tenure or be a complete disaster from the start. Now that a few years have gone by and we have time to truly break this down and look back at it, the trade very much worked out for the Lions too. This trade was made in January of 2021, but because the Rams have traded their first-round picks for seemingly forever, they actually didn't have their 2021 first-round pick to give the Lions because it was already allocated from the Jalen Ramsey trade. So if you were wondering why it was a 2022 and 2023 one plus Goff, that would be why. With the 2022 first-round pick from the Rams, the Lions traded up from the final pick in the first round to go get the speedster in Jameson Williams. The 2023 first-round pick they received was a big surprise because when they made this trade, I think everyone initially thought both of these picks were going to be in the mid-20s, or like we saw in 2022, even later in the first round. But it wasn't because of the Rams' injury-filled season, and the Lions eventually traded back from pick 6 to pick 12, and by trading back from pick 6 to pick 12, they also acquired an additional second-round pick, and the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs and tight end Sam Laporta from the Rams' 2023 first-round pick. The picks from this trade have now been made, and the Lions made out with Goff, who has been a good quarterback for them, all things considered, Jameson Williams, who I still believe in, running back Jahmyr Gibbs, and tight end Sam Laporta. The Vikings and Bills trade is often referred to as a trade that worked out for both teams, but I think the Lions and Rams trade is another classic example of this. Detroit, like LA, gets an A+ grade. Next up is another receiver trade, and it's the trade that sent Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for a 2022 first, a 2022 second, as well as a 2022 fourth, 2023 fourth, and sixth. We will get into the picks KC used, but first up is the Dolphins side of the trade. All Tyreek Hill did in his first year with Miami was go for 119 receptions for over 1,700 yards and 7 touchdowns, and all he's done in his second season so far is go for over 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns, both of which he can still add on to. Miami gave up a lot of draft capital for Tyreek, and when they made this trade, they were hoping for the type of impact Stefon Diggs had with the Bills, but they received that and then some. Tyreek finished second in receptions and yards in 2022, both behind Jefferson, and will probably finish in the top 3 in receptions this year, as well as lead the league in both receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Oh, and in Tyreek's case in 2023, that's all with missing a game. He is a one-of-one weapon, and there is no doubt Kansas City is missing Tyreek at this moment, and even though they won the Super Bowl in 2022, there were definitely points where they missed him during the season as well. For Miami, the grade for this is very simple. You knew the player you were getting in Tyreek Hill, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say in terms of overall speed, combining straight line, agility, and acceleration, Tyreek to me at least is the overall fastest player in NFL history. When you combine an offensive genius like Mike McDaniel along with a precision passer in Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle too, I don't want to discredit Waddle by any means, you get the greatest show on surf. I hope this team wins a postseason game or two this year, but this grade for Miami is very clearly an A+. Now, for Kansas City, this isn't easy to grade for a few reasons. Obviously, we all know about the struggles they've had this year at the receiver position and that Tyreek Hill would fix a lot of those problems himself, but we're not grading the ramifications of trading him because it's not Tyreek's fault they didn't have a viable plan once he left. So we are grading the picks that were spent from this trade. Kansas City used the pick the Dolphins traded in 2022 to go up and get a sliding corner in Trent McDuffie, and McDuffie has played well and has been well worth a first-round pick. The second-round pick the Chiefs received from this trade is where it's stings. Casey had the 50th overall pick and traded it to New England, who had pick 54, and with pick 50, the Patriots shocked everyone when they drafted Tyquan Thornton in the middle of the second round, despite being a late round prospect, and I'm talking well into the 5th or 6th round, and the next 3 picks went Cam Jurgens to the Eagles, George Pickens to the Steelers, and Alec Pierce to the Colts, and then Kansas City eventually selected Sky Moore. We can very easily do the, well, they should have drafted Pickens all day, and this is the part for the Chiefs that really stings less than 2 years later. McDuffie is a good corner and will start for them for a long time, but I think if Kansas City could have a do-over, I think Tyreek would still be a Chief. We give them a B- grade. Now we have one of the biggest trades in NFL history, as Cleveland sent Houston 3 first-round picks as well as a future 3rd and a future 5th for quarterback Deshaun Watson, and immediately gave him a 5-year deal worth $230 million guaranteed. The Texans side is first, and this is pretty easy. 3 of the 5 picks from this trade have been made, and the only bad or not great one was 2022 first-rounder Kenyon Green, though Kenyon can still be a good football player. He missed all of the 2023 season due to a shoulder injury. This was after a not great rookie season, but it is important to remember Kenyon was a 21-year-old rookie, so he can very easily bounce back and prove to be, again, a good football player. The other picks, though, well, one was used to go get Will Anderson, who I personally think will be a good player for a very long time, and the 2023 third-round pick that was used in this trade, are you guys ready for it? Wide receiver Tank Dell. So the Texans traded a former quarterback and already have 2 starters from this trade, arguably 3 depending where you have Kenyon Green, and still have another first-round pick to use from this trade. I don't think there's much else that needs to be said here, because even if you said the Texans received a franchise pass rusher in Will Anderson and a player who could very easily go for 1,000 yards year after year in Tank Dell, that would be enough. But they still have another first-round pick, an A+ grade for the Texans. Now, from a football standpoint, the return Cleveland has received from Watson isn't even close to what they gave up. We are now 12 full starts into the Deshaun era, and he's thrown 14 touchdowns to 9 interceptions and completed 59.8% of his passes, which is significantly lower than the 67.8% he averaged as a Texan. If you want to say to split the 2022 and 2023 starts for Deshaun, as he needed to wear the rust off last year, fine, we can do that. He threw 7 touchdowns on 170 passes in 2022, and he threw 7 touchdowns on 171 passes in 2023. He also hasn't brought much to the ground game, where he added 5 rushing touchdowns in 2018 and 7 rushing touchdowns in 2019, as well as nearly throwing for 5,000 yards in 2020, as he would have the best statistical year of his career. Cleveland made this trade to win a Super Bowl, and with how Deshaun has fared so far as a Brown in his first 12 starts, which is now more than half a season, by the way, I don't think we're ever going to see the Deshaun Watson we saw in Houston. Cleveland also took a massive PR hit in the process, as well as giving up 3 first-round picks for a player that I don't think has even been an average NFL quarterback. Guys, this is an easy F grade. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 32% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.